Alrighty. It says we're live. It indicates that we have audio. All right. So you can read the title "Problems with First Peter 3:1." Not in the Bible, but in different Bible versions. There's contradictions, and I hate the NLT and I hate the NIV, and I think that churches that are using those versions are messed up because of stuff like this. So I want to make content like this to show you all the different versions. Fact check me, go in and look at the versions. Um, there's Bible renderings is what it's called, and they're not rendering it to mean the same thing. And I'm going to show you that right now. So First Peter 3:1 is going to be portrayed differently in a lot of these verses. Let's get into it. First Peter 3:1 in the King James Version says, "Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives." Conversation is used here as an archaic version of the word behavior. All right, so it's saying if your husband doesn't obey God, if he's not obeying the word, that you have to submit to him anyway. So that's application. That's where this is going to be different in the different versions. First Peter 3:1 in the New Living Translation, it says, "In the same way, you wives must accept the authority of your husbands, not submit." It says you have to accept the authority of your husbands. Let's keep reading. "Then, even if some refuse to obey the good news, your godly lives will speak to them without any words. They will be won over." So, New Living Translation is an extremely paraphrased version of the Bible. But I mean, I don't think that that needs to be that paraphrased. Submit to your husband if he's not a doer of the word. And we're going to get into other renderings of it. Well, we got to do the water real quick. So this is saying that if they don't obey the good news, so I guess that means the gospel or something like that. Submit and accept authority are not the same thing. So we have a difference here. One is saying submit to your husband if he's not obeying the Bible, basically, is what the King James said. This is saying that you just accept his authority. So, uh, you know, I'm not trying to be a weirdo or anything or legalistic and stuff, but here's the thing: obey and accepting somebody's authority is not the same thing. Obeying is an action. Accepting somebody's authority is like an internal thing. And what is the good news? That's not in any other rendering, so I don't know how they did that. Let's go to First Peter 3:1 in the NASB. This is the original NASB. This isn't like the 95 or anything like that. The NASB says, "In the same way, you wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if any of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won over without a word by the behavior of their wives." So, the beginning half of the verse is saying the same thing as the King James. I kind of thought that the part about being won over saying without a word, I thought that was kind of weird, but it's basically saying the same thing. Now let's go to the NIV. So the NIV in First Peter 3:1 says, "Wives, in the same way, submit yourselves to your own husbands, so that if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of the wives." A lot of weird things in there, a lot of different renderings from these different versions. But this is saying if your husband doesn't believe the word. No other renderings put the word believe in there. This is going to ruin doctrine because God said to submit if he isn't even a doer. So the NIV is wrong about this. The NLT is weird. Again, I don't like those versions. Um, it means an unsaved husband or a saved husband that's not a doer, you should submit to them. But this is saying that if any of them do not believe the word. So again, it almost makes it sound like uh, something along the lines of if they do not believe the word, so that I've heard people say this before. Well, you can convert your non-saved spouse by being a good Christian. I agree with that because the Bible does say that. But here's the thing: what is this verse supposed to mean? Is that what the verse is supposed to mean, or is it saying that if your husband is a Christian and he's not a doer of the word, that you still have to submit to him? Those are two different things. It's a big deal. Belief is not a deciding factor on these commandments, according to these versions. Like we're going to go to the ESV next. So First Peter 3:1, the ESV says, "Likewise, ye wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if some do not obey the word, they may be won over without a word by the conduct of their wives. So again, saying the same thing as the NASB and the KJV. It's saying, wives, be subject to your own husbands, even if some do not obey the word. So that word obey is really the important thing here. Changing it to not obeying the good news or something like that, like the New Living Translation, changes doctrine. We need to know what God really said. But let's go to 1 Peter 3:1. In the 1599 Geneva Bible, the Bible says, likewise, let the wives be subject to their husbands, that even if they which obey not the word, may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives. You can see that word conversation there again. But it's saying that if they obey not the word. So if you have a Christian husband, he's not going to obey the word perfectly. You still have to submit to him. So the NLT and the NIV are just bad Bible versions, and we're going to do a lot of videos like this where we go in and find these kinds of verses where there's contradictions from the majority text position and renderings, because this is not good, guys. Because I could see some woman grabbing the NIV and being like, "Oh yeah, I don't have to submit to you. Only if they come up with their own interpretations and stuff." The King James says, likewise, you wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be on the conversation of the wives. So we don't want to go by weird versions. We want to go by good versions. Submit to your husband, whether he follows the Bible or not, is what God said. All of the serious versions, like the NASB, and you could say the ESV. I use the King James as my standard. The New King James said the same thing. The Geneva version says the same thing. And then you have these different renderings from all these other versions. I was going to look at the Good News versions and all that kind of stuff, but they're all connected. So like the Good News version is what came before the NLT. And so it probably says the same thing. But my point is, what did God say about this issue? If you're a woman, you have to submit to your husband in everything as you do to the Lord. That's what God commanded. There's no exceptions for that. The reason I wanted to do this video, and I should have said this at the beginning, is because a lot of times a bad husband, he doesn't follow the Bible, that you should not submit to him. Like it'll be better for you if you don't submit to him. Well, that's not what God really said. And they've got these funkety dunkety Bible versions that are causing people to err on these kinds of things. Yes, if your spouse is a unbeliever, you can probably convert them. Even if they don't get converted, you could probably make them behave better by submitting to your husband if he's not a believer. But if your husband is a believer and he does not follow the Bible perfectly, you still have to submit to him. That's the key point here. It's very important. But I just wanted to make that quick video. I hope you guys got something out of it.